my 72 hours in Havana, Cuba. My channel, I'm Tara and I'm a vlogger living in New York City, but I do this travel series on my channel called Hours In. This week we are in Havana, Cuba. So a little rundown on what we did when we first got to our Airbnb. We arrived in Havana, Cuba yesterday afternoon around 2 p.m. and luckily we actually got to meet Luca, who owns the Airbnb. He kind of sat with us and gave us some initial recommendations for the local area. We are staying in the neighborhood of Vedado and I would definitely recommend it. It's super, well, pretty close to Old City, but kind of away from the hecticness, and it's a super nice neighborhood, nice chill area for tourists like us. Luckily, we're actually staying really close to one of the top attractions here in Havana, Cuba, which is the Malecón, and it's a really long 8-kilometer stretch of road, but it's right next to the sea. It's so beautiful, and it's basically where all the real Cubans hang out. So you'll see a lot of couples and friends chilling, people playing music. Yeah, we took YouTube's advice and brought down some rum from our minibar and just chilled and watched the sunset. It was so beautiful, and not only a great place to people watch, but a great place to car watch. All of the beautiful vintage cars that have been around since the 50s and the 40s are all here. They look impeccable, and it's like being in a dream watching them go by. Like, it really lives up to expectations. From what I've seen online, one of your best ways to get a kind of a good footing and a sense of where you are in Havana is to take a car, like a taxi or a bus tour. So that is what we are doing this morning. I think it's a perfect way to kick off our first day, and Luca, who owns this Airbnb, has kindly offered us a tour. So we're going to hit the pink car again and go for a tour around Havana. Stopped at Luca's other residence, which is another listing that he has on Airbnb, but we kindly just stopped after our tour of Fusterlandia to grab a drink and observe the amazing views from here. This bed rolls all the way outside to the terrace. Kind of the dream, guys, kind of the dream. Tourist hat on, Old Town, here we come. I was trying to be a holiday chic, but I think I'm looking more cowboy. Gracias. So we made it. We ended up getting a private taxi for $5 and we asked to be dropped at the Capitol building, which is pretty much a carbon copy of the US Capitol building in Washington. We're on one of the really popular streets, Obispo now, and we're just having a stroll. Lots of pretty little side streets down here and nice places to get ice cream and gelaterias and all that kind of good stuff. But the vibe is fantastic and it's just a great place to enjoy a walk around, I think. We've been walking around Old Havana for a while and we finally made it down to the famous Plaza Vieja Square. Oh my god, the sun is set. It's the most beautiful evening. Now we're heading for something to eat. We made a reservation because there's two restaurants down here that come highly recommended. Number 1, 304 O'Reilly, and number 2, El Frente, which is a restaurant also owned by 304 O'Reilly, but El Frente was more recommended to us by our guide earlier, Luca. So that's where we made a reservation tonight. Also, the local people are very nice, but if they seem a little bit too friendly, you gotta cut them off because they're more than likely trying to sell you something. My vlog camera actually died, but we stayed out pretty late at the restaurant that we decided to eat at, El Frente. Food was okay, like it was a pretty expensive meal. It was tourist prices, sort of chill dance music playing, and it was just a good vibe all around. It's exactly the kind of Cuban night that you want to have when you're in Havana, so we really enjoyed that. But there was a bunch of stuff we didn't get to do yesterday, so today we're going to be trying to hit things like museums and more cultural things that we didn't get a chance to do on foot yesterday. So the Wi-Fi situation in Cuba is obviously known for not being very good, but it's not completely inaccessible. Obviously there's times where you need to access the internet just to plan out your day, plan out your route. What we've been doing is just connecting to Google Maps and bookmarking all of our locations so that when we go offline we can still kind of see where we're going and all the places we want to hit. So when you do need to get Wi-Fi, you're going to have to try and find one of these bad boys, which kind of feels like a drug deal going down, trying to get one of these, but it's an Atexa Wi-Fi card. It's basically a voucher with a username and a pass, and these can be bought at Atexa stands. But what happens a lot of times is some ticket touts basically buy all of the tickets in the morning. The Atexa stand doesn't have any. You just kind of have to stand around people that are clearly on Wi-Fi and wait for them to come to you. They do double the price for the 1-hour Wi-Fi vouchers, up to 2 cook. If you buy them from the stands, they're only 1, but it's still fairly cheap all the same. The only thing is with these though, they only work on certain streets. So for example, in Vedado, we're on 23rd Street, which is the main strip, and it works the whole way down the street. However, when we were in Old Town yesterday, the only place that we found it was the bar we went to, El Floridita. So that's one good reason to stop there for a drink. First stop of the day for us is the Museum of the Revolution. Our last sightseeing stops of the day and probably one of the most beautiful times to see it. Just got to this beautiful square where the Plaza de la Catedral is, or the cathedral in other words. Even the streets here on the way down were just so beautiful, and look at that. Oh, I wish there was just a better way to show you the colours and the palm trees and the sunset, the smells, the sounds. It really, the camera does not do justice at all. Just even looking at the footage, the vibrancy doesn't translate on camera whatsoever. It's something that you really need to come and just absorb for yourself. We finally made it onto a rooftop in Parc de Central. There's a lot of hotels around here with a lot of bougie rooftops that either only open to guests for people dressed really fancy. For third time's a charm, we made it on the rooftop of Hotel Ingleterre, and we've got this amazing view. It's super low-key and the drinks are cheap, so what better way to end the night. One last Cuba Libre. So we found this adorable little spot not too far from the Museum de Revolution, and it is so cute down here. It's probably the nicest street for like restaurants and bars that we found, and it has this beautiful outdoor vibe with everyone outside. Thank you so much. Exactly the kind of al fresco dining experience you want when you come to like a nice warm country like Cuba. We are so happy we stumbled across this spot. Cuba isn't known for its wildly gastronomic background. It's an amazing spot for seafood, obviously with it being so close to the sea. So I would say in any restaurant you go to, try and stick to the most local dish, like red snapper if you're into fish, things like that, and you can't really go wrong. But almost every night you can find yourself in really exciting paladeras, which are basically restaurants that range from everything from holes in the walls to in people's houses, like literally a slice of pizza out of somebody's like window, to average restaurants on the street to really nice restaurants. Even though it's Italian, I think this is our favorite spot that we've eaten so far, and probably El Frente for drinks. Okay, down to the nitty gritty. How much do we spend going to Cuba? Because we got a one-way flight, our ticket was only $150, but if you're getting a round trip, you can expect to pay around $300 to $350, but you can't forget about the extra cost of the Cuban visa, which you will pay at the airport, and it's usually between $75 and $100 depending on your airline. Also take into account your airport transfers, so if you're getting a taxi, expect to pay anything between around 20 to 35 kuk for a 30-minute journey to your accommodation. On to the fun part, how much cash should you bring to Cuba to spend? It's really all depending on the kind of person you are. Cuba's definitely the kind of place where you can budget it out if you don't have that much, or you could go completely luxury also. We kind of fall somewhere between the middle. Definitely took kind of a low-key approach. We try to budget throughout the day and then kind of treat ourselves to like nice dinner and drinks in the evening. So all in all, we only kind of ended up spending around $180 US or 180 kuk each, which translates as about the same for the 3 days, which converted into euros works out as around 150 euros each, which I think is pretty damn good. And that budget is also including the fact that we did tip quite generously to locals where we could. We started running out of cash, but it turns out if you have a MasterCard bank card, like a debit card that has a MasterCard symbol on it, that one will work in the ATMs here. Although saying that, we did use a UK bank account to bring cash, especially if you only have a US bank account, because US credit cards and debit cards will not be accepted in Cuba. So how long should you come for? We treated this as a city break, so we were here for 3 nights and we got about 2.5 days out of our traveling, and that really wasn't enough to completely explore the city. However, we always love for a reason to come back, so we don't mind that. If you want to come and spend more time relaxing, take it easy a bit more, check out some of Havana's lovely beaches and go on day tours, things like that. For example, we didn't get to go to Trinidad, which we're really sad about. We only found out about it after we got here. So if you want a couple of extra days to do something like that, I think 5 days would be perfect. Big question, is it difficult to get into Cuba? We had absolutely no issues on our Irish passports. Also with other European countries, we saw that people were getting in very easily. Obviously, there is slightly more regulations with US passports, especially when you're flying from the US. But honestly, I watched a lot of videos. A lot of them were from YouTubers from the US, and they really just did the same kind of trip as us. They stayed at Airbnbs. We need to get out of the sun here. Next tip, plan ahead as much as possible. Like, try and know where you're going to eat, know where you want to go, mark it down on your maps, take a physical map with you if you can, because the lack of Wi-Fi is a slight hindrance here, and I feel like we didn't get as much done as I would usually do without the Wi-Fi. With restaurants, anything that's very touristy or is on any sort of popular online article about eating in Cuba, definitely try and book online or ask your host to help you ring in advance in the morning. Another tip I would say is learn some basic Spanish, like your name. I would say the name of your street in Spanish, just so that when you're in a taxi you can kind of easily say it, because we kind of had a little bit of trouble with that, but it's fine. However, saying that, everyone in sort of their 20s down did speak really good English. Also, one note on taxis, just like any other country, you need to be careful that you don't get ripped off for a taxi. We were staying in Vedado, about a 5-minute drive from Old City Havana, and our average taxi, one that we didn't share, cost about 5 cook from Vedado, and if we were coming back from the old city at night it would cost about 10, just because I feel like the nighttime taxis are a little bit more expensive from such a popular area such as Parque Central at nighttime. Towards the end of the trip you may even be brave enough to grab a collectivo taxi, which we did, and it was so cheap. It's basically just a shared taxi ride. Just ask any old taxi that has people already in it or jumping into it whether they're a collectivo, and if they just say hop in, then you know you're good. Anytime I go on a trip, I always get questions about the people I've had interactions with, like Luca, who was the owner of our Airbnb. He took us on our tour and he actually offers those tours, so I'll leave his information in the description below. He has this Airbnb, he has the lovely one on La Mar, which is a house that you can rent out completely if you're in a big group. I'll also leave my Airbnb referral link in the description below, so if you're interested in booking through Airbnb, you get a pretty good discount. I think it's like $25 or $45 or something like that. I'll leave it in the description. And my last Cuban breakfast. So that is it. We're at the airport, but the fun does not stop there. Be sure to subscribe because the next city we're hitting is Tulum, Mexico, so that's coming very, very soon. Cuba, you have been amazing. You are full of old world charm and romance, and we cannot wait to be back. I will see you guys in the next one.